I'd like to officially call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Bloomington Rotary Club's weekly celebration of service for October 13th, 2020. I'm your current president, Ashley Sullivan. Thank you for being here. Michael, please show our flag graphic for 15 seconds of respectful silence. We ask that everyone remain on mute and take this time to personally reflect. Get a sneak peek at our agenda. Top secret stuff, guys. There we are. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Glenda Murray, who will be offering our reflection.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I've been thinking a lot this fall about the teachers and the staff and the students who are trying to figure out what's safe and maybe even comfortable as they go to school, in school, online, combinations thereof. And I was thinking about how Rotary International President Holger Kanak has talked about the importance of staying in touch with younger people. I think he was thinking of people younger, but who would come to Rotary, but I was thinking of the students in the schools. So I called Sean Gobert, who's the assistant principal at Fairview School at 7th and Rogers, and I asked about the shade structure that in the playground area. Some of you will remember that our club provided this shade structure 3 years ago. We had this dedication in September, and I thank Michael for sharing the photos and for Sarah Laughlin for sending me the photos. Mr. Gobert assured me that the students and the teachers are still appreciating it. The first one, this was at the beginning of the dedication, and then you'll see the ribbon cutting with Miss Colglazer, and then you'll see and some students and Judy DeMuth, and then the second grader saying thank you. So I just thought that we would enjoy seeing those today. The Rotarians who came played games briefly with the children before we did the official ribbon cutting. And then I thought you'd like to see how else Fairview uses that structure. This was 2 years ago in the fall when they had their fall festival, and they were using it for musical interludes. So I thought you would enjoy seeing those. The shade structure is one way that we've helped Fairview students and teachers in the last 3 years. This year there's a hand washing station just a few feet away, of course, because as they play, then they wash their hands before they go back to school. I just thought it would be nice today to think about how the students use what we provided 3 years ago and how else we might be able to work with them in the future. So thinking of students everywhere and teachers.
Thank you so much, Glenda. What a wonderful remembrance of that project, and very fitting for the rest of our agenda today. Okay, so now we have a few guests to introduce. Starting out, Suzanne Owen is joining us today. Welcome. And Liz Irwin, would you like to introduce your guests?
Well, I sure would. Thank you so much, Ashley. I just want to make a quick mention that Darby McCarty is here with Smithville. She's on board today, as is Erin Brewington. Of course, we're part of that organizational member category, and so they're here representing Smithville along with me today. I also wanted to mention Donna Neese has joined us. Donna is a State Farm agent extraordinaire with an office in Ellettsville, and she also serves with me on the board for the Greater Ellettsville Area Chamber of Commerce. So welcome, Donna, Darby, and of course, Erin, who's with us usually.
Thanks so much, Liz. I also see that Don Bird has joined us from Braver Angels. Welcome. Always good to see you. And Liz Granat is here from CJAM. Welcome. And Becca Shaw is joining us today. She's here with Trey. So welcome. Okay, any other guests that...
And Patrick Smith, we're so glad to see you.
Patrick Smith, welcome.
I have a guess.
Yes. If I may, I wanted to say I invited 13 people today, and Patrick was one of those that showed up. Now, Patrick is a previous or is a ex-Rotarian, if there's such a thing, and we're working on getting him back. So I am glad to see him. I'm not so sure if anyone else showed up today, but we won't quit trying.
Thank you, Jim, and welcome, Patrick. Jean?
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes, I have a guess. Rita Barrett, the Van Buren Township trustee, is joined as my guest today. So welcome, Rita. She doesn't have a camera, but she doesn't have a camera, but she's here.
Welcome.
I appreciate your invite. Thank you.
So glad you could join us today.
And I see Robert Wren. Don't know if Ann's with him today or not.
I'll bet she is.
Welcome again, Bob and Ann. All right. So thank you to our producers, Michael Shermis and Natalie Blaze today. And our roundabout reporter for this week is Connie Shikalis. Birthdays, Jim Capshew, October 14, and Dave Meyer, October 18. And membership anniversaries, Walt Kuhn has been a member of our club for 19 years. Congrats, Walt.
Thank you.
We have a few Rotarians in the news. Efrat Pfefferman and Jim Sims both were authors of essays in the latest Bloom magazine issue. They joined 21 other experts in writing about what's at stake for Bloomington and the country in the November elections. Fellow Bloomington Rotarian Bob Salzberg will be interviewed by Mike Glascott on radio station WGCL 1310 AM today at 3:10, so check that out. It's covering the Bloomington Rotary Toast. Bob Salzberg will be our MC for the event. Speaking of the Toast, a spot in the HT featuring Bob Hamill and more info about our big fundraiser that will benefit the Hoosier Hills Food Bank. The print edition will be out this week. A few announcements. Ron Jensen recently underwent surgery, so if we could keep him in our thoughts, that would be much appreciated. And I should have put this in here just a second ago, but we have a toast announcement, I believe, from Sarah Laughlin. Sarah?
Just a quick one this week. I'm working on the planning committee, and I just wanted to let you know that excitement is really building on the planning committee as we receive your tickets and sponsorship commitments. And as of this morning, I think we have 234 people who will be, tuning in with us on November 6th. As you know, we're using Mandolin, so that's a local company, and they're designed to just do presentations, just music and theater. There's no advertising around the edges. It's HD quality, very high quality audio and video. So it'll be a really different experience than Zoom or Facebook Live or YouTube, other things like that you've been part of. And as the video details are being nailed down and we have some preliminary taping in the can, it's very exciting for us to see it. We have the mayor actually presenting the mayoral proclamation this year, which is a breakthrough, and that part looks really good. I haven't seen the drone video of our Paul Harris Fellows yet, but I know you had a really good time doing that. And I just want to say that we are well represented in our club and holding down key aspects of the Toast planning. So Ashley is joining the other two Bloomington Rotary Club presidents in representing their clubs and making sure that the word gets back to all of you. Jim Bright, of course, is holding down the public relations part of the Toast, which you are not surprised about, and doing his usual over-the-top fabulous job. Mike Baker and Phil Eskew are co-chairing the sponsorship committee, and we are just about to meet our budget for sponsorships, which you know, because we're redesigning the whole thing, starting from scratch in a period of great uncertainty, we had no idea whether anyone would attend or would support us. And so we're just absolutely thrilled by that. Bob Zaltzberg, as Ashley said, is the MC of the evening. He will be in a tux with Bob Hamill in a tux, listening to the toasters and responding to the toasters. And Connie Shakalis, I can't really say what she's going to be doing, but don't miss it because she's playing a surprise role in the toast, and you don't want to miss this. It's something that you will never forget in your life. So if you haven't yet bought a ticket, they start at $25 just for a view only ticket, or if you would like to have a charcuterie board to munch on and a Rotary Toast wine glass to join that, the tickets are $100. And you can buy them without getting out of your chair by just going to rotarytoast.com. So hope to see you there. Join our club and support our benefit for the Hoosier Hills Food Bank.
Thanks so much, Sarah. It's going to be a really exciting and creative event. I can't wait to join it. Jim Sims has an announcement for us concerning membership. Jim?
Thank you, President Ashley, and I appreciate your and everyone else's patience. My schedule has a conflict with the last couple weeks of our meetings, but I am so glad to be back here today. The first thing I would like to do is acknowledge our Rotary Club's membership committee. So if everyone that's on the membership committee can kind of raise your hand and wave, with some specific kudos to Dave Meyer and Trent Deckard, our committee co-chairs. Now moving on, I'll say what many of us already know, or at least many of us members. We are a diverse and engaged community of leaders whose fellowship and service have significantly impacted or has significant impact locally and globally. And also on June 18th of 2020, our club adopted Resolution 1BR-31, which asks Rotary International to oppose racism and increase diversity in our leadership. Now, I've been asked to talk about or encourage members today with regard to membership. First off, I want us all to know, and we already know this, that membership is the lifeblood of any organization. And each of us has a responsibility and an opportunity for each Rotarian to recruit members. So please do so. Bring them to the club's meeting with you, forward them to our membership committee, and we'll do the rest if they're interested. Also, a part of our club that we could share with others, and again, this is something that you already know, we fellowship and we build relationships, and we do fun things while serving our community. I am equally impressed with the diversity initiative that was initiated by Dr. Raji Hadawi and supplemented by many other members in our club. What this diversity initiative fund will do moving on into the future is to help us recruit more diverse members with some, if needed, with some financial incentives as we move forward. So again, I just want to thank everyone. This is a good, strong club. I am happy to be a part of it, and I want to see us continue to grow. I want to see us continue to be more diverse, and I definitely want to see us have a similar or larger impact on our community, particularly our children. So thank you all for listening. Have a great day. Looking forward to hearing our speaker today.
Thank you, Jim. Now we have an announcement from District Governor nominee Lance Eberly, an update about Saturday's Zone Summit. Lance?
Thank you, President Ashley. Myself and I think several others did have the privilege over this past weekend to attend the Rotary Virtual Summit. As many of you know, this was initially scheduled to take place in Oklahoma this year, but due to the pandemic, they did have to kind of shift to a virtual format. And I will give Rotary kudos. They did pull it off in outstanding fashion. But the summit really is designed to allow Rotarians to come together to share, information, build connection, and exchange ideas. We participate in the summit with the zones 30 and 31, which basically includes all Rotary clubs going down from Louisiana to the eastern part of Texas, up north to Indiana, over to Ohio, Tennessee, and Kentucky as well. So overall, we had about 1,200 people in attendance. It also gives us an opportunity to exchange and to meet and have conversations with many of the senior leadership of Rotary, including RI past president Ian Reesley, Mark Maloney, and the current president-elect Shakir Mehta. So a great opportunity there. And through these sessions, we cover a variety of topics from everywhere from membership to public image to the Rotary Foundation and to RLI. And I'm also very proud to say with this club that diversity and inclusion was a very, very big topic and a very big part of the conversation that we had during these sessions. But again, I think it is a great way for any Rotarians that want to learn more about Rotary to fine-tune their leadership skills, to participate in, and I would highly recommend that next year, if you have a desire that you look forward to going to the next Rotary Summit, which is scheduled hopefully to be in person in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the end of next April. So again, highly recommend the session and did get a tremendous amount from it as well.
Thanks so much, Lance. I would say anytime that you can take a district training or a Rotary International training, do it. You'll learn a lot and you'll meet new people, and it's just a fabulous way to get more connected. Okay, up next, we are presenting a check officially, I can't hand it to anyone right now, to the United Way for our district grant recipient. Michael, would you show the photo from this presentation that actually did take place? Our 2020-2021 District 6580 grant recipient is the United Way of Monroe County Day of Action Literacy Backpacks for Kids. Research has proven that the number of books in a child's home is strongly linked to better educational outcomes later in life. Related to this is the number of words a child has heard in their early learning years. Unfortunately, children in low-income households typically have less books in their home. For example, on the first day of kindergarten, a low-income child has heard 30 million fewer words than a middle-income kid, according to Emily Pike, Director of New Hope for Families. Some children in our community, due to traumatic circumstances, have had to leave behind everything they own, like the children that have fled an abusive or violent situation and now reside at Middle Way House's housing unit, The Rise. These literacy backpacks have a very important meaning for these children. For them, it means having a bag of their own to keep their important possessions, new books and supplies, things that they've had before but have had to abandon. Having a few possessions to call your own in a time of stress and trauma is comforting, and the same goes for children whose families have recently become homeless and are now being served by New Hope Family Shelter. Volunteers for this project will build literacy backpacks for 600 children served by member agencies who provide care and education to at-risk children or those coming from low-income situations, including those impacted by homelessness. The United Way agencies include Big Brothers Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Clubs of Bloomington, Girls Inc. of Monroe County, Middle Way House, Monroe County United Ministries, and New Hope for Families. Bloomington Rotary Club volunteers will assist the United Way with the project, donating approximately an hour and a half to 4 hours each shift to packing or assembling the backpacks, including making bookmarks and or delivering the completed backpacks to the member agencies that we're partnered with. The materials include books, a bookmark, workbooks, blank paper, composition paper, pencils, crayons, sharpener, eraser, and a pencil bag. Projects such as this Day of Action, along with United Way's ongoing literacy programs, help even the playing field and give every child in our community the opportunity to achieve in school and beyond. So thank you to Efrat Pfefferman and Liz Feidel for their efforts in submitting their application on behalf of the United Way. And thank you to our community service team and each of you for seeing the need and selecting this project that will serve so many young people in Monroe County. The volunteer dates will be December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th We're looking for 12 volunteers on each of those days for 1.5-hour shifts. And we're not sure how long it will take us to complete. So if you're really eager to help, we ask that you sign up for a shift earlier in the week in case the later shifts are no longer needed. And the shifts will be from 10 to 11:30, 12 to 1:30, or 2 to 3:30. A sign up will be included in the roundabout, and we'll need lots of Rotarians to complete this outstanding project. So all of the necessary precautions are in place for the shifts. We'll have 4 volunteers at a session. Masks are required. It'll be incredibly safe, and it will do so much for our community. So thank you, United Way, and thank you to all of you. Congratulations. And sorry I can't hand you the big check today, but we are where we are.
Okay. Thank you so much. We're so excited for this project, and I know all the kids are too. Anytime we, deliver something to them, it's just a joy, and I hope some of you get to experience that. And especially right now, I think those kids could use some, special touches in their lives, and not to mention some real books, not like screens. So thank you for everyone who helped with the committee, and everyone who's going to help us assemble these and get them out.
Thanks, Efrat. And now, in the essence of time, we do have a few more volunteer opportunities that are available outside of this opportunity. I'll just mention them briefly. Adopt a Road is coming up on World Polio Day, October 24th. Salvation Army bell ringing, we're doing it again, but we'll be at Kroger East and South this time. The sign up will go live for that November 2nd. Thanks to Steve Moberly for organizing. And Helping Hands, Wheeler Mission, and Teachers Warehouse are ongoing. All of those will be listed in the roundabout for you to sign up. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Lynn Schwartzberg, who will introduce our speaker for today.
Thank you, Ashley. Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce our 9th District Congressman, Representative Trey Hollingsworth. Trey is currently, and I hope these are accurate, the vice-ranking member of the House Financial Services Committee Subcommittee on Investor Protection, Entrepreneurship, and Capital Markets. He also serves on the House Financial Services Subcommittee on Diversity and Inclusion. Trey was educated at the University of Pennsylvania for his undergrad and Georgetown University, where he received his Master's of Public Policy. Congressman Hollingsworth has served since January 2017 in the House, and he does firmly believe in term limits. I'm sure you've heard him speak to that. He has introduced a resolution to amend the Constitution to a 4-year term for the House and a 2-year term for Senate, so he's staying on that one. He has also proposed a lifetime lobbying ban. He's married to Kelly Francis and has a young son and lives in Jeffersonville. On a personal note, I have visited Trey in his office in Washington 4 years now to discuss the value of public broadcasting, something near and dear to my heart, which he has always been very receptive to. So please, let's give a warm Rotary welcome to our Representative Trey Hollingsworth.
Well, good afternoon, Lynn. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. You got all of that right. Thank you so much. A+ for the day, and it's only 12:30, so you're doing well on a great Tuesday. It is so wonderful to see so many friendly faces, to see so many people that I've visited at the Rotary several times now. And so I really appreciate everybody jumping on this virtual call to make sure that we get the opportunity to interact, to make sure that we get the opportunity to talk about the issues that I know matter most to each of you. As you know, my goal, I want to talk as little as possible, and I know we're running a few minutes later here, so I want to make sure I give you ample opportunity to ask any questions that you want to of me. Anything that you want to talk about that's going on today that you hope we're going to be working on tomorrow, other issues that are of importance to you, I want to make sure that we discuss those. The things I continue to be working on are the things that we've always talked about. Number one, right now during this very, very difficult time, making sure that we continue to fight back against the coronavirus, making sure that we seek security in our health, because first and foremost, we are pushing back through all of our healthcare heroes and all of our biological researchers there at IU and elsewhere across the country. in treating coronavirus better and ultimately finding and then implementing a nationwide vaccine. This is hugely important to me, as it is to so many Americans across the country that feel trapped at home and unable to live the lives that they want to because of the fear and the reality of the challenges of coronavirus. And so I want to make sure that we continue to do everything we can through biological research, through antivirals, through vaccines, through just practical treatments on the ground to make sure that we're combating coronavirus. The full force of the federal government, I can report positively to you, as you guys know already, that the vaccine, if one of the two is selected, will be produced right there in Bloomington at the Moderna facility. And they're going to hire up to 300 more Hoosiers in order to be able to produce what I hope is 100 million doses by the end of January or February. So we're really excited to be playing our part here in the 9th District to supporting the nationwide effort for vaccine development and vaccine inoculation across the country. This is hugely important. It continues to be the #1 thing I hear about, no matter what age group I'm talking to, no matter what geography I'm talking to, making sure we get back to as much of our normal lives as possible, as quickly as possible, is hugely important. Second big thing I work on every single day is the economy. And we've made tremendous strides on this in the last 60 days. We lost 20 million jobs between February and June. We saw the economy plummet an unprecedented 33%. We have since picked up about 10.5 million jobs back, so we're about halfway back. We're expecting Q3 economic growth to be plus 25 to 30%. That's the estimate as of right now. So clawing back much of that loss, not the entirety of that loss, but making sure that we continue to support Hoosier families and Hoosier businesses through this very difficult time is really, really important to me. So many families were seeing their best economy in their lifetimes as of February, only to lose their jobs, to lose their businesses, to lose their livelihoods by the end of March. And so we want to make sure that we're supporting American families, that we're supporting American businesses, and ultimately enabling every American to be able to see the other side of this and to be able to regain their financial footing as quickly and fully as possible. I heard from so many Hoosiers all the way across the district the last few years that the economy they were seeing, excuse me, was some of the best economy they had ever seen, that they were seeing real and meaningful wage growth, that they were starting small businesses, that their employers were hiring and investing in their talents. And so I want to make sure that we get back to that as quickly as possible. I know many economists are hoping by Q3 of next year to Q4 of next year that we can reach full employment again. And I know that is a meaningful heuristic for so many of our families all the way across the district. And then lastly, and Lynn really touched on this, I think ultimately, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, no matter what your walk of life, no matter where you're from, the feeling that Washington isn't working for you, that Washington isn't serving your values, that Washington isn't focused on your priorities, that continues to be a challenge. Ultimately, the strength of this country has always been the American people, and making sure that we return this government to the American people is hugely important. And Lynn mentioned two of those big initiatives. One, term limits, making sure members of Congress aren't there forever. And then secondarily, making sure that once they leave, they aren't going to become high-paid lobbyists to lobby their replacement or their successors. We ultimately owe it to ourselves to get back to that Republican government of ideals, one that is very focused on ensuring that we, the people, have the power in this country, not elected officials in Washington who aren't having to face election after election because of the power of incumbency, not bureaucrats in Washington that aren't responsive to the American people, and certainly not those in Washington that don't reflect our Hoosier values and the values that matter most to us. And so I want to make sure that by virtue of these, we push every ounce of power we can, not just into legislators' hands, but ultimately into the American people's hands. And that's been a really big push of mine from the very beginning. So I wanted to just speak as little as possible and answer as many of your questions as possible. I'm sure Ashley's got some sort of plan for how we're going to do this so that everybody's not talking over each other, but I'm really looking forward to a great dialogue and hearing what matters most to each of you and how I can be serving each of you well.
Thank you, Trey. I will be taking questions in the chat so that we can then ask Trey the question so that we can keep an order here. We do have our first question from Jim Bright. If the Affordable Care Act is struck down. Yes, Charlotte?
No, I'm sorry. I'm just, I can't write in the check. I'm just calling there.
Charlotte, after I ask this first question of Jim's, I'll direct to you and then you can ask your question, okay?
Excuse me for interrupting. I didn't mean to do that.
No, that's totally fine. Thank you for speaking up. Back to the question from Jim. If the Affordable Care Act is struck down, what impact will this have on Hoosiers, especially those with pre-existing conditions and with those who have lost their jobs during the pandemic?
Great. Well, it is a great question, Jim, and I really appreciate you reaching out about that. I think the question when you say is struck down, I assume that you mean legislatively changed. Obviously, we've gone through much of the court system already, and much of this has been affirmed. If it is not affirmed in its finality and on this final question, then that will be a very different look to the ACA and how it is remanded to lower courts. But from a legislative perspective, we've worked a lot on how we reduce healthcare costs and how we enable and empower Americans to be able to access more healthcare. Number one, all the legislative proposals that have been put forth by both sides on how we modify, how we replace the ACA, all of them have protected pre-existing conditions. Not a single proposal that I have seen that is of any merit or has been seriously considered in DC has not protected pre-existing conditions. So this is really, really important because I know so many Americans suffer from chronic diseases, suffer from some sort of condition that before would have prohibited them from getting the care that they need, or alternatively enabled different pricing for that care. And so ultimately, it's really important to make sure that Americans feel that they are going to be treated equally no matter their current condition. And so it's really important to remember that all current proposals currently protect against pre-existing conditions. And then secondarily, you bring up a great point. Most people, over 155 million Americans, get their health insurance through employer-provided plans. Actually, the largest single tax line item spend is for the deductibility of employer-provided healthcare plans. And obviously, when one separates from their employer frequently, they lose that coverage after a period of time. And so it's really important to make sure that we continue to provide services for those families that have lost their coverage by virtue of losing their employment. Like I said, we've lost 20 million jobs between February and June. We've clawed back 10.5 million, but that means 9.5 million Americans are without a job compared to those that had it in February. And making sure that the federal government continues to step up and provide relief to those families, either directly or indirectly, by asking providers to still provide the necessary care, COVID or non-COVID, to those families is hugely important. And so I really appreciate you asking the question, and it continues to be a priority for me to make sure every American has access to the care that they need. Ultimately, though, some of the proposals that have been put out there about control by government of our healthcare really, really scare and frighten me. And when I talk to Hoosiers all the way across the district, they are very concerned about the idea that they will no longer be at the center of their healthcare and able to make their own healthcare decisions, but instead, they will be asking a bureaucrat in Washington whether they can get that knee surgery, asking a bureaucrat in Washington whether they can take that prescription, even if it is both safe and effective. And I think many of those challenges we need to work through to make sure that we keep our patients at the center of healthcare and not put government at the center of healthcare. Thanks for asking, Bill.
Charlotte? You're muted, Charlotte.
There. Is that right?
Uh-huh.
I can hear you. Hey, Charlotte.
Hi, Congressman. I'm of an age that have lived through much better economic times than the last 4 years, much better, over and over again. I was born in 1934. That was a very bad time. And then we've had successively better times. The best time was just before 1980, and then the labor unions were their legs were cut out from under them by President Reagan, and so we've had problems with employee empowerment over the time. So I want to just say that I have been benefited from Medicare, and it's been absolutely wonderful. I've lived through the death of my husband, and Medicare is absolutely wonderful. And I would say that I've had absolutely no problems with it's as well administered as anything in the country. And I would hope that kind of administration would be protected, because it is not the government runs that program. It runs it extremely well, and it's quite capable of that. I've just not run in any program, and I'm concerned that we switch away from the way it's been run to something run by corporations rather than the government. I think the government has done a great job of keeping on top of it. And my question to you is, what do you think should be the minimum wage for Medicare? Because I think you're talking about Medicare for all when you talk about what you just said.
Yeah, a couple of things. So Charlotte, number one, I really appreciate the couple of questions and observations. I'm really glad in your personal experience, which certainly varies across the country and certainly varies by individual, that the late 70s were the best economic fortunes that you had lived in. Certainly from an objective and aggregate standpoint, that was not the case. And the best objective performance in the economy was the 16 to 19 period. Unemployment hadn't been lower since the 60s. Wage growth hadn't been sustained at higher levels since the 50s. And so though your personal experience in the 70s, it seems like was very, very good. And I'm so happy for that. The aggregate experience of the US economy in 16 to 19 was its best performance in over 70 years. Secondarily, to talk about Medicare for all, there are many things that we'd have to resolve in order to get to a Medicare for all system. Number one, Medicare payments to providers and for prescriptions is frequently below the cost of delivering for those providers. If you expanded to Medicare for all and suddenly the patient mix went to 100% Medicare, you would have to raise significantly the reimbursements by Medicare to those providers. Otherwise, you would see providers that are unwilling to provide said services to their community members and to Hoosiers that need those services. And so it's really important to remember, though Medicare is a portion of the population, if you expanded that to the entirety of the population, many providers would not be able to provide their service at that level of reimbursement, and it would raise significantly the cost to government to administer the program. Secondarily, much is written about the efficiency of Medicare, and when you look at it on a per patient basis, Medicare seems more efficient than private insurance companies, but that's not the right way to look at it, because by and large, patients on Medicare have significantly more conditions / complications. Maybe you do not, I don't know what your personal experience is, but by and large, Medicare patients have significantly more complications and conditions. Thus, their cost per dollar is actually more inefficient when run by government than private insurance companies. And that's really important to remember. And then third, the Medicare program has not been designed as a pay-as-you-go program. Obviously, you worked very, very hard for a very, very long time and paid into the Medicare system so that then you could get the benefits after you turn 65, right? You cannot fund that same program on if a 30-year-old pays in for 1 year and then they get Medicare at the same time. You need a significant period of time for individuals to be able to pay into the system in order to get the level of benefits that Medicare provides. I have not seen a single proposal that would fix that very fundamental problem because the costs are so high to do so. So just like Social Security, you pay into the system for a very, very, very long time, and then you get your benefits. It does not work as a pay-you-as-you-go system. And so that's really, really challenging. Charlotte, it looks like you want to ask this follow-up question. You got your hand up.
Yeah, I respect your putting me down, but the fact of the matter is I have lived for a very long time. My question right now is, what can you do to get the stimulus package through? Because people need that.
Oh, okay. Second question on the stimulus.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, it's up to Nancy Pelosi to bring a stimulus to the bill that can pass the House and pass the Senate and be signed by the president. That's how we make laws in the country. And we would need her to bring a bill to the House floor that has the support of the president, that has the support of the Senate. We can't unilaterally do so either as the minority in the House and not the majority even in the House. And so it's a great question.
Keep working at it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you. Next question is from Tim Jessen. Do you approve of the job Donald Trump has done to manage the pandemic?
Look, I think that there's a lot of blame to go around here. I've blamed the administration for things. I've blamed House Democrats for things. I blamed the mainstream media for things. I blamed social media for things. Certainly looking back, I wish that we had done things very differently, and I wish we had made different decisions that would empower Hoosier futures and ensure that every American that was alive in February was still alive with us today. I think with 200,000 deaths, with the job losses of 20 million, I think that there's plenty of blame to go around on everyone for how this has been handled and how we can do better in ensuring that America gets back on its feet as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Next question is from Liz Feidel. She says, same question to you as your opponent. What are your thoughts on the federal minimum wage?
This is a great question. Ultimately, what I want to see are wages that go up across the country. I want to see Americans feel like they've got more control over their financial future, that they're better able to get the wages that they want to see. The best way that we know how to do this is to increase the demand for labor. That's the sustainable way to build better wage growth over long periods of time, because ultimately the supply of labor is relatively fixed in the short run. And so when we see real and meaningful wage growth that outpaces not only inflation, but even chained inflation, the thing that we get in that is making sure that we have more robust demand for labor. And the best way to increase demand for labor is to ensure that our companies, our small businesses, our big businesses are growing faster than the general economy. And that's really, really important to me. The second thing that we can do to continue increasing wages across the country is to increase the marginal productivity of labor, right? To ultimately make sure more Americans are better educated and better trained for the careers of the 21st century, right? There's certainly a different level of wage for a cardiothoracic surgeon versus someone that's checking you out at one of our convenience stores. And those difference is explained by the marginal productivity of that labor, and making sure that we invest more in training, we invest more in education, so that ultimately every American can not only start at a certain point on the wage ladder, but continue to grow their wages over time is hugely important. I'm a big believer that the only way to do that sustainably over a long period of time is to make sure that we have a better education system that is even more robustly funded, that we're paying teachers more, and that we're delivering more resources to our kids. And I saw the presentation that you did earlier in providing more books and providing more opportunities for those at lower income or those whose lives have been interrupted in their youth by virtue of some disaster, and making sure that we continue to invest those resources and tools in the next generation of Americans will pay huge dividends, and then being able to get even higher wages as they grow up and achieve their American dream. So it's a really great question. The two big aspects are, number one, improving demand for labor over the long run, and then number two, increasing the marginal productivity of that labor by making sure we are providing more and more educational resources.
Thank you. Next question is from Martha Wales. She says, I receive and answer your polls regularly. Do you ever publish these answers from your constituents?
Number one, thank you, Martha, for doing that. I love that. Every Wednesday, we send out a poll, and then every Thursday, my team gathers all of the results from those polls, and I review them every Friday to make sure your answers are well heard. Not only your answers, yes, no, agree, don't agree, but also the I don't knows and the others, when people provide wonderful suggestions. And actually, much of the best pieces of legislative work we've been able to accomplish on your behalf in DC, frankly, has been because of the input that we've gotten from those polls. And so please, Martha, continue to take them. We have not yet published any of those because we want to make sure that people feel like they can take it in secrecy and anonymity such that they give their honest and full answers. It would not behoove that process to make sure that we publish those results, but they are tremendously instructive to me and helpful in delivering the best possible policy outcomes that the district writ large wants to see.
As a constituent, I would feel happier if I had some sense periodically of what kinds of answers you were getting.
Okay, well, I certainly appreciate that, Martha. I'm glad that you're contributing your opinion to it. We want to make sure that everyone feels like they've got the opportunity to answer those polls. And certainly, as I said, it's really important for me to make sure I'm getting as much feedback from the district as possible. So thank you, Martha.
Dave Meyer's question is concerning income inequality. He says, income inequality in the US is higher than it has been in a century. How do you think we should address and reduce income inequality?
Dave, this is a great question. This is something I work on every single day on the Financial Services Committee. What can we do to create more opportunity for Americans to build better financial futures? This is hugely important to me. As you know, and as you've referenced, the Gini coefficient in the United States has been on a steady increase for the last 30 years. Some of that has to do with larger global forces that are afoot, and some of that has to do with poor policy making here in America. I want to make sure that we do our part as policymakers to empower individuals to be able to grow their wages, to be able to start small businesses, to be able to build financial futures. And much of what I've done in financial services is making sure that we're democratizing finance more widely across our district and across our country. We want to make sure everyone feels like they have the opportunity to participate in the same economy. And I promise you that we don't have that. We don't even have that in district, right? As you guys mostly live in Bloomington, if you drive a few hours away in Crawford County, I can promise you they feel like they participate in a very different economy than what you're participating in. Suburban America's experience over the last 30 years has been very different than urban America, has been very different than rural America, and making sure that we spread the tentacles of our financial system and thus our economic system further and further out so that every American feels like they can be included, irrespective of their geography, irrespective of the color of their skin, is enormously important to me. I've worked on initiatives like small dollar lending. I've worked on initiatives such as the sandbox that would enable more fintech companies. I've worked on initiatives that loosen some of the rules around how loans are made so people can get those loans online or via an app versus having to go to a branch, as there are fewer and fewer branches in rural America. So ultimately, I believe that we can address income inequality. I believe that we should address income inequality. But the only way to sustainably do that is to empower individuals to be able to do more with their finances and get in a better financial position. The answer can't be we're going to hold those at the top end of the income deciles back. I want them to continue to invest and grow this economy so that we can empower those at the lower income deciles to be able to advance their interests more rapidly. I want to provide more opportunities for them to do so, not fewer.
Thank you. Next question is from Jean Emery. She asks, do you have an opinion on the confirmation hearing of Judge Barrett prior to the election?
Oh, I do not. I don't have anything to do with that constitutionally. You have to talk to our two senators about that and the current pace of those hearings. But from a constitutional perspective, the House is totally irrelevant to that dialogue.
Thank you. Jim Sims asks, what does, and I quote, the Republican government of ideals mean? Is there room for non-argumentative debate with those who may have a different view of government of ideals?
Oh, Jim. Oh, I'm so sorry. I meant little r Republican government of ideals, not big R. You know, we live in a republic, not a democracy. And so that's little r Republican government of ideals. I am hopeful that our government takes into account a wide variety of views and everyone feels like they have the opportunity to contribute, irrespective of their background, irrespective of their experience, irrespective of their current views, irrespective of their opinions on how we move forward. So little r, not big R. Don't worry, I wasn't being pejorative to anybody in that statement, but just referencing the type of government that we set up 240 years ago, and I hope will continue strong for the next 240 years.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
No problem. Sorry about that, buddy.
Okay, another question from Jim Bright. Lynn mentioned that you serve on a subcommittee on diversity.
Yes.
Do you support the administration's efforts to shut down diversity training in federal agencies?
I have been an advocate for more and more diversity in more and more areas of our government since day one. This is why it's so important to me to serve on this subcommittee. There are just unbelievable amounts of research all the way across this country that indicate the benefit to companies, government agencies, to our institutions themselves by virtue of enhanced diversity. And so you have never seen me come out and say that I'm against diversity. You've never seen me say we need to shut down diversity training. You've never seen me talk about any of those things. I continue to go to those hearings and talk about how we can empower more Americans to contribute more of their talents into this country from a wider variety of places day in and day out. And I want to make sure that I continue to be an advocate for that. I believe irrespective of the color of your skin, irrespective of the geography you're from, irrespective of whether you may have committed a crime in the past or not, you should have the opportunity to continue to pour out your talents to make this country better. And I'm going to continue to be an advocate for that day in and day out. So thank you for asking that question, but that's really, really important to me, that everyone knows that they have a place in this country and that they can advance their family's interests and this country as a whole together.
Ashley.
Charlotte, I have one question ahead of you, and then we'll come back. We'll have to close the meeting in just a few.
Okay.
Trey, are you able to stay over after for just a few minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have one question here from
Yes.
Lawrence Snyder. He says, what are the details of your plan and efforts around term limits? How many terms are you proposing for House and Senate, keeping the 2- and 6-year terms?
Yes. So, Lauren, this is a great question. Number one, I know there are many efforts underway to change the 2- and 6-year terms. I'm not a fan of that. I love that I have 2-year terms because it means that I have to face voters every 2 years. I think that's really important in terms of accountability to make sure that I'm coming back to you and saying, am I doing the job that you want to see done? And you've got the opportunity to walk into that ballot box and say yes or no by virtue of clicking my name or my opponent's name during that particular cycle. So I'm a big fan of keeping that. So I have put forth a bill that says you should serve no more than 4 terms in the House, which is 8 full years, no more than 2 terms in the Senate, which is 12 years. I think it is hugely important, like I said, with regard to diversity, that we get more Americans engaged, more Americans involved in their government. I don't want the same old ideas that have existed for the last 35 years to continue existing. I want new ideas. I want fresh ideas. I want people to come up here and say, gosh, I've done tons of great research on climate change. I want to contribute to that in DC. I've done tons of great research on education. I want to contribute that to DC. I've done tons of great research on national defense. I want to contribute that to DC. These are the things we should be having in DC, not the same old people with the same old ideas for long periods of time. And so I'm going to continue to be the House's biggest proponent of term limits. I'm the House's biggest proponent of lobbying bans so that, frankly, we get more power devolved to the American people. I think nowhere do I go that people say the source of strength in this country is the American government. What they say is it's the American people, right? We've solved problems. We're resilient. We're unbelievably persistent. We've got unbelievable ingenuity. Just look at this pandemic and what our businesses have gone through, what our employees have gone through, what IU has gone through in being able to solve challenging problems very quickly. We need more of that in government, and the only way to do that is to get more of the American people involved.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think we can squeeze in one question from Charlotte here before our official close. Go ahead, Charlotte.
Okay, that's wonderful. I think it's great that we have, that you want new ideas and new things done. That's wonderful. So I want to know what you personally have done to introduce new ideas to helping people revive their small businesses. What have you personally done?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Charlotte, and I appreciate that. You got to be the change you want to see in the world. You can't just talk it, right? So
yeah, absolutely, and truly.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte. I appreciate that. So I have been an outspoken advocate from the very beginning of making sure that we're empowering our smallest businesses to be able to get through this and those that have been most challenged. Certainly, we've seen a tremendous resurgence in the economy compared to what was expected with a full aggregate demand stop in March. And so I supported the first bill to make sure that we provided PPP to many of our smallest businesses all the way across the district. I've been immensely supportive of the special UI benefits during that time period to make sure that we're helping families through that as well. I've been immensely supportive of some of the income transfers that have helped American families also get through this, even if they were previously unemployed. In addition to that, prior to that, I've been strongly supportive of all those initiatives to help small businesses gather more capital so they can grow. Because one of the things that we're seeing in income inequality is there's also a tremendous gap between our largest businesses that seem to control more and more of the economy versus our smaller businesses that feel like they're getting eroded. You've seen that on Main Street versus Amazon. And so how do we make sure that our smallest businesses, which are the source of much of our hiring, how do we make sure that they're also succeeding in this 21st century economy as well? And then the other thing is we've talked about already, I'm a huge advocate and proponent for making sure that everyone has access to the education that will enable them to get better jobs in the future, right? I don't know what that education looks like for everybody. Some of it will be great education at IU through 4-year programs. Some of it will be through technical training programs, and others will be through community programs like Ivy Tech that are doing tremendous work. And so I want to make sure that everyone has access not only to the K through 12 education that helps them get where they want to go, but also the higher education. I tell people all the time, post-secondary will be necessary in the 21st century. You just have to determine the post-secondary that works and fits you best. And so those are great questions, Charlotte. I appreciate that.
But tell me what you have done to make sure that happens, you personally.
Oh my gosh, the number of bills that I've introduced and supported on the workforce training specifically. Oh, it's just unbelievable the amount of work we've done in this space. I'm happy to follow up with you on the list of bills that we've introduced, the list of bills that we supported that both open access to more and more Americans for this, but also change terrible government policies that have led many of our great Hoosier kids to make misguided decisions. I mean, just one example, we've talked about Pell Grants before, I know, at the Rotary Club, but the fact that you can go to a great institution like IU, and the government will provide much support and funding for that. But if you choose to go to Ivy Tech because it fits you better and you think that you're better suited towards that, the government provides much less funding for those type of educational opportunities. And that's a real shame, because there are tremendous opportunities for our kids to be able to go to an Ivy Tech, maybe transfer to IU eventually, or go to an Ivy Tech and get an education that will enable them to get a career in the 21st century. And so I'm happy to follow up with you, Charlotte, and Ashley can send
I
the
would, because in fact, I know I'm very involved in just all sorts of that sort of stuff. I know a lot, but I haven't heard you doing anything specific.
Okay, well, we're happy to follow up with you. I'm sorry that our comms team hasn't gotten out to you all the work that we've done on the space, but it's an area that I'm tremendously passionate about.
Thank you.
Passion is good if it's transferred into real action.
I like it, Charlotte. Thank you. That's exactly right.
Thank you, Trey.
Thank you.
And we do have a few more questions we'll ask after this brief closing.
Okay.
In honor of your presentation today, we'll be giving a donation to Amethyst House. We recognize our speakers each quarter with a donation to a local organization. And Jim Bright, would you please tell us about next week's meeting?
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Want to invite everybody back next Tuesday when our speaker will be IU alum Josh Rawich, who will be joining us from Scottsdale, Arizona. Josh is senior for Major League Baseball's Arizona Diamondbacks, and his topic will be the pandemic and professional sports. See you next Tuesday.
That's great. I might come back next Tuesday, Jim.
Please do, Trey. You can be my guest.
Join us.
Love to have you.
Michael, please show our graphic to recite the four-way test. +1. Of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun? Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Congressman.
Thank you, guys. Have a great rest.
So much for having me as a visitor today, and I'm sorry